These are the 5 books I'd recommend to anyone that's struggling with anxiety. My name's Jessica, I'm a pre-licensed therapist and bibliotherapy coach, and these are the 5 books I'd recommend to anyone that asks me, what book should I read to help me overcome my anxiety? Starting off strong, if I could only recommend one book, it would be this one. Cheryl Paul's The Wisdom of Anxiety. Cheryl's work takes a more holistic, Jungian, and depth-oriented approach to anxiety and psychology in general, which is why I really love her approach. In Cheryl's work, anxiety is not seen as our enemy, but as a wise messenger that has something to tell us. So our job is not to fight off the anxiety, but rather to uncover the underlying messages that the anxiety is trying to alert us to. This book is a really overarching and holistic approach to dealing with anxiety. She dives into all the different areas that anxiety can creep in our lives, and also pairs her teachings with a lot of practices that are very helpful. So I'd start here. It's a great lifeline. It's a great resource. It's something that you can flip back to anytime and refer to. But if you're feeling that your anxiety is veering more into the realm of panic, I would suggest maybe getting started with some CBT books. That's why my second suggestion would be a book called Mind Over Mood. Mind Over Mood is a cognitive behavioral therapy workbook, which means that there's a lot of lists, to-do lists, charts, forms, and stuff like that that could be really helpful when you're swimming in a sea of anxiety and you don't know what to do. CBT really gives you concrete, simple tools to fall back on and get the ground back under your feet. It can be really helpful to use things from CBT like the thought records, keeping track of your symptoms over time to see how you're progressing and add tools to your toolbox. Mind Over Mood is kind of a choose your own adventure book where you can read the beginning couple chapters, then skip ahead to just the anxiety chapter or whatever chapter is more relevant to you, and then read the end chapters, and you can skip the other chapters if they're not relevant to you. But let's say Mind Over Mood isn't really your cup of tea. I wouldn't give up on CBT just yet, before checking out my third suggestion, When Panic Attacks by David D. Burns. I really like Burns' writing style. He comes across as very empathetic, warm, and non-judgmental. He just really wants to help the reader live their life again and get out of that deep trench that anxiety can put you in. I don't think that CBT is a cure-all for everything, but I do think it works especially well for certain things like severe anxiety and severe depression, where you're just really trapped in a rut and you can't seem to get out of that rut and you're not sure what steps to take. Having a concrete list of steps and charts and things to get you moving can be really helpful. So once you've read suggestions 2 and 3, Mind Over Mood and When Panic Attacks, then you can move on to a book that looks more at the outside of things rather than what's just going on inside your head. So for my 4th suggestion, I would say check out the book Attached by Levine and Heller. Attachment theory can be a really big part of psychotherapy depending on what style of therapy your therapist practices, and learning about attachment theory can be really helpful for you personally as well. If your anxiety is mostly triggered by your relationship, I think this would be an especially useful recommendation for you. So you might be an anxious attachment style, and say for example if your partner is an avoidant attachment style, that might heighten your anxiety that otherwise you wouldn't feel so overwhelmed by. If there's a certain situation in your relationship that's causing you anxiety, it can be really useful to see if attachment theory has anything to do with that anxiety. I'd also recommend this book to non-anxious people. It's just a great read. It's very interesting. It can be very insightful to learn about your attachment style, your partner's attachment style, your family's attachment style. But I think it's especially eye-opening for people that are having anxiety within their relationship or notice that it comes out more in the context of their relationship. Lastly, I would check out The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron. Another classic book, but not everyone has read it or heard of it, so if you haven't, I would definitely check it out. I definitely think that anxiety goes along with a lot of other traits like creativity and high sensitivity. So once you have your anxiety a little bit more under control, I would check this book out to see if you feel like that description fits you. High sensitivity is a highly researched and validated trait that about 20% of the population has. Being highly sensitive just means that you are more sensitive to the things around you. It's just that your nervous system is very highly attuned to the outside world and your own inner world. Now, obviously, you can be anxious without being a highly sensitive person. I think it's just worth checking out for you personally if you think that those things go together and if it helps you gain a certain level of self-understanding. I just know that I personally have learned a lot about myself since discovering that I am a highly sensitive person. Just knowing and having the scientific validation that this is a real trait and that I'm not making it up in my head can be really validating. And it's what has helped me become more confident in advocating for myself and my needs and my high sensitivity. For example, there's certain situations where now that I know that I'm highly sensitive, I can be more conscientious around making choices that might affect my anxiety. For example, I don't drink caffeine anymore because I know that caffeine raises my level of anxiety. When I'm traveling, I try to plan more downtime than a person that's not highly sensitive would probably plan for themselves. Being able to make little tweaks in my life like this, where I know that I'm able to have a huge influence on my levels of anxiety by trusting myself and by setting certain limits and boundaries with myself and others, has been really helpful. In fact, it's to the point where I would no longer consider myself an anxious person. I just feel like I'm a highly sensitive person who is also creative and introverted who happens to have anxiety come and visit once in a while. And even when it does visit, I have a lot of the skills from learning about CBT and different theories, so I'm able to bounce back from my anxiety a little bit quicker. So those are my 5 suggestions that I'd recommend to anyone that's struggling with anxiety. Check out Cheryl's book for a great overview and holistic approach to anxiety that has a real comforting and soothing touch to it. Check out the 2 CBT books, Mind Over Mood and When Panic Attacks, for some real concrete strategies that can help you get through the toughest times. Read Attached by Levine and Heller to learn more about yourself and your own attachment style. And then finally check out the book The Highly Sensitive Person to see if that trait also resonates with you. The more learning and self-discovery you do and the more tools you can add to your anxiety toolbox, the better. I hope these 5 books were helpful suggestions for you, and I hope that you subscribe, like this video, and see you around to the next one.